It all started with the brutal murder of a young married couple. Now, more than 40 years after the couple was found, investigators and forensic genealogists are cracking the case wide open to uncover a stunning second mystery.
Where's the baby?
I said, well, wait, he had a baby?
We cross the country speaking with victims' families and those close to the case as we ask, what about Holly?
I just want to know what happened.
This case needs all the help it can get.
Available now on Spotify.
Devil's a lie. The devil's a lie. BBWs has been a part of the porn industry, even from its early days. In the late 90s, early 2000s, BBWs were some of the strongest porn stars in the business and one of the top moneymakers. Companies such as Black Ice, Evasive Angles, West Coast Productions, as well as a host of many others, Heatwave Films, was known for their BBW titles, such as Big and Fathom Freaks, BBW Pound Cakes, and so forth. Even in the mid-2000s, Hustler tried their hand with BBW Nurses, which technically flopped. AVN, seeing that the BBWs was doing extremely well and was moneymaker, was making noise, decided to give BBWs a seat at the table with their own AVN award, which, as of last year, ended. This year's AVN has no BBW award whatsoever. Award such as the Biggie Award, which was given out in the early 2000s at the Exotica before BBWs. Urban Spice and Urban X made it a point to recognize BBWs and even allow BBWs to accept the award on stage, while AVN shunned that. BBWs donned many of the top magazines such as Black Tales Magazine and as well as many others, top magazines as well. They were known for their parties and all this good stuff, and also was known as one of the top money-making escorts in the business. But why is it that the porn community never embraced the BBW genre? Why is that? Is it because the BBWs did not fit the AVN look? Or was it the producers and directors that was at the top of the food chain that didn't feel that BBWs had a place in their porn, let alone at the table? In this episode of Smoke This Over Dark, episode 53, I am going to look into why BBWs was never fully embraced by mainstream porn. And why now, after all these years, Brazzers has been the only one that was successful, mainstream company successful, to integrate the BBWs, and why they were successful while others wasn't. Hey, how you doing? I am Kavanaugh, the Southern Champ, a.k.a. the Porn Rap Star. Welcome to the Premium Smoke Room. This will be a free episode just for you listeners because this is for AVN Week, the end of AVN Week. And I think a topic that is near and dear to a lot of people into my heart. I cut my teeth in this business with BBWs. I was one of the first guys to shoot BBWs. I was one of the first guys to prove that BBWs was moneymakers. As I not only recruited girls from Busty Baby Dolls and also sent Busty Baby Dolls and sent to Evasive Angles and Score Magazine, the whole nine. So today I decided, let's take a look at the BBW genre and the AVNs. Now, where do we begin? Well, let's begin early 2000s. In New York, the BBW boom began there. Don't get it twisted, there was BBWs on the West Coast, but there wasn't a lot of companies that were shooting them at first. They didn't have a home. Certain ladies such as Senate Kisses and Elizabeth Rowland and Kelly Savoy were some of the earliest BBWs that was featured on companies that only really shot small girls. Carol Lane was one of the first BBWs to really break out. But the girl that really coined the phrase was actually a black woman by the name of Crystal Clear, who was brought to Hollywood and ushered in with the help of Lorel, aka Baby Doll. Busty Baby Doll was one of the top independent porn sites in the country. Based in New York, I think if I'm correct, the Bronx. She made it a habit to shoot black BBWs. Because one, she was a BBW herself. She was partnered up with another lady who had started another site, which they ended up beefing and ended up becoming no longer partners. The other lady started Click For You to Lick, which was doing the same thing, and they was competing against each other. But it was Busty Baby Doll who actually was more known and was more revered, and if you want to say who won the war between the two of them, it was her. Busty had a knack for sending girls to Hollywood, especially BBWs, to actually work with some of the major companies. She was able to somehow get connections with Hollywood and with some of the top companies, and was able to convince them to shoot BBWs. Crystal Clear being one of the first ones that was being shot. One of the first BBW titles was BBW Overload, which she starred in and was on the cover of. BBWs at first were getting paid very well. They were getting paid $1,000 to shoot. But part of it was a lot of companies wasn't shooting them. If you wanted BBW work, it was most on the East Coast, probably in New York at the most. But then Invasive Angles, because of a wonderful woman by the name of Busty DeBard, who made big booty and thicker women something to be desired because she was a video vixen, opened the door for ladies like Pinky and Cherokee, which in turn opened the door for BBWs. Because of this, BBWs started to get attention with mainstream Hollywood. Certain companies such as Black Ice, as well as West Coast Production. Rodney Moore was already shooting them. The first company that actually really was shooting BBWs, if you want to be honest, was Score Magazine. The reason why they were shooting BBWs is because more BBWs have bigger tits than that of smaller women. So that's why you saw a lot of BBWs being used in Score Magazine. But here's the kicker. They never called them BBWs. They never called them big women. They just called them big busty women. The term BBW didn't get coined until Crystal Clear started filming in Hollywood. And the reason why Hollywood decided to go ahead and make the BBW genre because they wanted to separate BBW women from the smaller women. So how you do that? You make a genre called BBW. Big, beautiful women. So for all you women that were sitting here thinking that y'all the reason why that term became prevalent, no. It was Hollywood that made that term prevalent. They made the acronym prevalent to separate big women from smaller men for women. The reason why, because one, they were unsure would their fan base accept BBWs. And two, they didn't want to mix BBWs with smaller women. One of the top BBWs in the game back in the day was one Thundercat, who my wife reveres a lot. She was stylish, she was sexy, and she shot with a lot of these companies. But, oh, and I forgot Black Market was one of the main ones, actually one of the first ones to shoot BBWs exclusively. Period. So, the thing about it was that none of these major companies really felt that BBW genre content was a moneymaker. So they used the BBW titles as what is called quota fillers. Now, for some of you people don't know what that means. Back in the day of DVDs, a lot of these companies had what's called distribution deals. No different than what a record label would get with when they was, selling their records, when records and CDs was king. So what they did was they became a major company by dealing with a distributor company that would distribute their DVDs across the United States to the different mom and pop porn stores that sell DVDs. In other words, Adam and Eve weren't the only ones selling DVDs. Yes, we talking about North American Video and many other places that sold DVDs and VHS, period. Within these distribution deals, these companies had to put out a certain amount of DVDs every quarter. It might be 10, it might be 12. Each company had their top 4 titles, which they felt was their money makers and was the titles that they wanted to put out. No different than, like, for example, Marvel Studio has, the movies that go to their big blockbuster, which is usually their Avengers Endgame or Avengers this. So the equivalent is you might have, let's say, 4 titles which they knew that was going to sell their moneymaker because they had their top stars on the cover and their top stars in it. But they still needed 6 to 7 other DVD titles to fill out the quota. So thus, that's how the BBW titles been born. And that's why they filmed BBWs. The studios themselves didn't film the BBWs. They leased it out to producers such as Dame Streets and other producers and directors that they paid to shoot these girls, period. So the BBW titles were their quota fillers. They wasn't expecting to get a lot of sales with them, but if they did, it was great. Lucky for some of these companies, the BBW titles actually made them money and made many BBWs such as Superstar Triple X, Pink Candy, Farrah Fox, Senate Kisses, Daphne Daniels, as well as Miss Marche and many others, household names in the porn industry. And ladies was finding themselves going out to California on a regular basis, filming and shooting. But as technology took over and DVDs started to go away, interracial porn became king, black BBWs mainly lost a place in porn and had to be relegated to doing independent work and being content creators, or the early versions of this. They had to put out their own DVDs, such as Molly Dare put out her own DVD called Maneater. Superstar Triple X put out Big Mama's House, which was her own production, or what have you. So, as well as, what have you. Sensational Videos, before it became Plumber Pass, was shooting BBWs, but it wasn't well known. It was considered independent. Wasn't even AVN status until a certain man by the name of Clint Works bought it and turned it to Plumber Pass. Thus, they became the top of the line for BBWs. Jeff Models was always there. You also had Rodney Moore with Scale Busters and many others. But still, they wasn't considered mainstream porn. It was considered more so mid-level porn. So BBWs was getting mid-level attention for the most part. Now, as far as the award side of things, AVN had no award for BBWs. Actuality, BBWs was never considered AVN certified, to be honest with you. They wanted the smaller girls, the girls with the fake breasts, the fake boobs. Trust me, they didn't even want girls with tattoos back then. So, and they weren't trying to shoot BBWs. Vivid weren't trying to shoot BBWs. Playboy, Wicked Pictures, Bluebird Pictures, many of these top companies. West Coast Productions, and like I said, many of them other did it because, of course, like I explained to you earlier, quota-filling content. Now, there was awards that were there for BBWs, but it wasn't the Big Daddy, which was AVN. Urban Spice Award was the first one to recognize BBWs. But the problem with that was their first BBW award went to a female by the name of Miss Butterfly. That was nowhere even close to being considered a BBW. Because what was so crazy about the industry is that they considered a female that was 180 or better a BBW, when technically BBW is 200 or better. They even tried to shoehorn women like Pinky and Cherokee Diaz, thick women, try to make them seem like BBWs. I mean, even if you go look at the browser's BBW, that new BBW category, you see females that are not even close to being considered a BBW in the BBW category, which is kind of funny to me. Which means they don't have a lot of BBW content because they just started shooting. Period. So Urban Spice was the first one to pay attention to him. And then, of course, there was a thing called the Biggie Award, which Exotica had in New Jersey. The reason why they had that for New Jersey was because BBWs are well liked on the East Coast, and especially in the Northeast and the Southeast, and somewhat in the Midwest. So they decided to have an award for the best BBWs, period. Ladies like Platinum Pussy was one of the first ones to win BBW award with the Urban X, and April Flores and many others. April Flores was one of the first ones to win the AVN one when they decided to announce that they had a BBW award. But what's so funny is that the BBW award was not given out on stage. Still has not been given out on stage. So April Flores, Caroline, and Platinum Pussy, and many other ladies that did win the BBW award never received it on stage in front of their peers. It was either announced with the scrolling, with when you scroll down and see what awards is not given out on stage. Yeah, that's where you saw who won the BBW award. And the ladies received their trophy in the back. Period. So why BBWs was not accepted? Well, one, in the minds of these producers and directors, their biggest worry was that if we promote BBWs, we might lose our fan base and lose money. People don't realize as much as porn is progressive, it's also very conservative. They don't switch streams unless they're forced to, meaning that they're not making money. The reason why Brazzers decided to shoot BBWs is because they're not making the money that they used to. And they're not getting the traffic that they used to, thanks to content creator era. So they needed to try something new. That's why they shot BBWs and transgender. We saw which one made the money for them. Why? Because they shot 3 BBWs and I have yet to see them shoot any more transgender. There you go. But a lot of these top companies didn't feel that BBWs could make them money or would appeal to their fan base. Actually, truth be told, many of them told me in many cases, on the low and private, they didn't know how to promote BBWs. Simple. You promote them as women. People can see they're big girls. You don't need to point out the obvious. But they didn't understand that. Hustler tried. They went to Eliza Allure to put together this wonderful DVD called BBW Nurses. But it wasn't successful. The reason why, because 1, they didn't promote it. 2, they didn't even put hardly any of the girls in the Hustler magazine as centerfolds, nor did they make any of them a cover girl. Nor did they really try to push the DVD. They treated it no different than what they treat they treated that DVD no different than what Vase of Angels treated the BBW DVDs, or many of these other companies that treated BBW DVDs as quota fillers. If actually the only way that you actually saw any of those girls in the pages of a Hustler was actually the review for the actual DVD. Now, mind you, you have Alexis Allure, who's a very gorgeous lady. I heard she was in Hustler, but I don't remember Hustler that I saw that she was in, but I digress. So, the other reason is that mainstream industry never embraced BBWs. They still kind of don't. Think about it. When you look at Victoria's Secret, do you see any big girls? They just started putting thicker women in Sports Illustrated. And they starting to make clothes for BBWs. That wasn't prevalent back then. Trust me, females had a hard time finding clothes to wear, especially if there was a supersized BBW. So mainstream porn wasn't accepting of the BBWs. They didn't even want them at their table. Period. Even though some of these BBWs were getting just as much attention and was getting just as much fanfare as their smaller counterparts, it was the fact that the smaller counterparts were the ones that all the producers wanted to show off. Period. You even have to this day certain male talents that will fuck a BBW off camera but never ever get in front of the camera with a BBW. I remember when Layla Everett shot with Prince Joshua. Shouts out to him. But what's so funny is she promoted the fuck out that scene, but Prince Joshua not one time retweeted that scene because he probably was worried that if he did, it would hurt his fan base and might even hurt him getting work in the industry. Just before he started his own talent agency, which, if you notice, does not feature any BBWs. Because still in mainstream porn, big girls are not accepted. They feel big girls cannot make money. They feel big girls do not generate traffic. Even though the independent side of porn has proven them wrong otherwise. Because the BBWs are making just as much money, if not more money, than some of the smaller girls that they revere. Hands down. They still do not do scenes that feature both BBW and smaller women. You only see that in the independents. So because the head people that's in the business and the people that are on top, many of them also pick the females that they themselves consider attractive and would fuck. Believe it or not. I mean, look at the guy from Vivid, the owner of Vivid. If he's still alive, he still owns it. His wife looked like the females that he books. So to them, big girls don't equal money. Big girls don't equal sexy. Big girls don't equal dollar signs. And that's what it was about. See, if Hustler was able to turn a corner with the BBW genre with BBW nurses, they probably would continue shooting BBWs. They didn't make any money. Part of it because instead of them just promoting them as sexy ass women and just giving them a regular DVD title or a regular DVD concept, they opted for the niche type DVD, which buried the BBWs within a nurse genre and made it no different than anything that they do with the skinny girls. They just put BBW on it. Period. The reason why Brazzers shit has worked, because you don't see BBW in the title of any of those scenes. So they treating the women as if they're just normal women. They're not bringing attention to the fact they're big girls. Guess who else does that? Blush Erotica. And many of the other companies that do that. Period. So the days of saying BBW is coming to an end, if you haven't noticed. But I digress. The reasoning to the other part of this is that at the time when BBW nurses was dropped, and I talked about this on a previous episode 2 years ago, they didn't grab the hottest BBWs at the time. It was left up to Eliza Allure, which didn't help. But I don't even think it was that. It was the fact that it was called BBW nurses. They didn't give them a great storyline. They didn't give them a great look. They didn't make them look sexy. They just looked like a typical mid-level quota filler DVD, which in turn didn't give them a big lift and didn't make the BB genre elevate. Think about it. It's kind of like putting out an all ebony DVD and then you call it ebony something. Okay, we can see that everybody in the damn movie is black. Then you have to point that out. You want to make that DVD stand out and seem like it's no different than your top DVDs. Think about it. Even with Roseanne, Elizabeth Rowland played Roseanne as a BBW, period. Any of the genres that the parody, when the parodies was a shit, any of the parodies that had a big girl that supposed to be in the lead, such as, or what have you, where the female was a BBW or something of that nature, guess what? They didn't have it in there, period. I even remember the Facts of Life porn parody. The lady that was Miss Garrett wasn't even a BBW. So that lets you know right there, they didn't give a shit about the BBW genre. So what's interesting is that the AVN, now that Brazzers has shot BBWs, there's a possibility that more companies will follow suit because they see that as a money maker. Which is funny, they're a decade late, but hey, we take it. But that's the reason why BBWs never really had a seat at AVN. Because a lot of the top producers, directors, didn't, as well as talent, didn't see BBWs as moneymakers. Actuality, the guys that actually shot with BBWs got less work than the guys that didn't. And that's facts. I remember an argument where they were saying that you had guys that were being nominated for AVN and nominated for some of these top awards, wouldn't even shoot with a BBW. Hell, barely shot with black women. But they get nominated while the guys who shot with BBWs or shot with any type female never got nominated or didn't even get the recognition that they should have gotten. I never forget when Nat Turner shot with Superstar Triple X. He never mentioned it. Never retweeted it. Pretend like it didn't happen. Period. The reason why, because at the end of the day, male talent was hampered. Because if they shot with a BBW, they might not get booked. So it wasn't just the male talents. It won't just the BBWs were getting ostracized. It was guys who shot with BBWs that got ostracized. They didn't get they didn't get the opportunity to shoot with the major companies. Period. And that's part of the reason why a lot of dudes now don't try to shoot with BBWs. Period. I remember talking to one male talent. He said, well, it depends on her size, how big she is. Period. You got guys that won't even shoot with a supersized BBW, let alone a plumper. So, and that's the reason why BBWs didn't get a seat at AVN too tough. Because, like I said again, AVNs felt that BBWs didn't fit the AVN look. It's a certain look that they want their models to have. Period. Think about it. When you went to the booths, how many times did you see a BBW at the booths? I mean, it's very rare you see an all. Hell, they just going to do a all BBW booth in AVNs this year. And look how many years AVN been going. Look how many years Exotica been going. Period. Exotica just 2 years ago started a fashion show which highlighted BBWs. Period. So, and think about it. Why is it that BBWs could not get that attention? They shot just as good. Many producers said they worked harder than the smaller girls. Part of it was because these companies didn't see value in them. And when you don't see value in something, you're not going to nurture it, nor you're going to shoot it, nor you're going to push it. You're going to avoid it. So it ended up happening for a couple of years when companies such as Base of Angles and Black Market and Black Ice shut their doors. It killed the BBW genre. But what saved the BBW genre for white women was interracial. Who suffered? Black BBWs. Now there's a resurgence coming. For black BBWs as well as white BBWs. Not just because of interracial, because now being thick and being big is in. It always have been, but to mainstream porn, it's now hot. Why? Because thanks to OnlyFans and people like Miss B Nasty who trash the industry and show that it's easy and you don't necessarily need to go to these mainstream companies to make money, to gain exposure and attention. Now, money is scarce. Traffic is scarce. They're not making the money that they used to. I mean, go ahead and take a look. If you look about a couple years ago, Brazzers probably was bringing in about a couple 5, 6, maybe 8 million. Now they barely seen 3 million. When have we last heard of a Vivid? When was the last time we heard of Vivid? Or even Playboy? No one buys the magazine no damn more. Hell, people barely even buy their DVDs. So now these companies need to figure out a way to generate money. Many of them don't want to go the route of transsexual porn or gay porn. So the only option is BBW. Even interracial is somewhat dying down to a certain extent. It's not as high as it used to be. So now we got to throw shit against the wall and see what sticks, and what's been sticking has been BBW porn. Now, eventually, AVNs will probably bring the BBW of the year back. I'm pretty sure. Well, actually, I think they actually got the fan vote, to be exact. But here's the funny part about the fan vote. Are they going to let the girls receive their award on stage like other awards? We'll see. But it's interesting that it's a fan vote, not a committee vote. Why is that? Why is we dependent upon the fans and vote to tell us who the best BBW, not a committee? Because once again, they're trying to, they want to give them a table, but don't want to give them a table. So the best way to give them a table is by doing the fan vote. When originally, how you found out or how they picked the BBW of the year was actually through a council. A group of individuals that picked who won. So that's in short of why AVNs really wasn't too hip to BBWs. And why BBWs for the past 10 to 20 years had a hard time making their place, making their name, and getting known in the porn industry. Because the industry didn't believe in them. So all you ladies that are BBWs, I want to say thank you for continuing your excellence in putting out things. Now, here's the other question. Everyone kept asking, what is a BBW? Well, industry standard is 180 pounds plus. Physically, it's a woman that's 200 or better. 180 to 200 is considered thick. Anything over that is considered BBW. But they try to lump thick girls in with BBWs because they feel that if you got a little bit of lady lump, if you got any type of lady lump, you're fat. If you ain't a size 0, you're fat. And that's what makes a BBW. That's why a lot of girls ask the question, how in the hell are these girls being nominated for BBW and they're not technically BBW? I remember a girl by the name of Raven Triple X. She was never a BBW. She was a feeder feedee. She became a BBW because she ate so goddamn much. You had many ladies that was plugged into the BBW genre, but was never BBW. They were thick. And that's facts. Period. And you have females that's in between. They can a sandwich away or a good workout away from being a big girl or a thick girl. Yeah, people, believe it or not, they tried to put Pinky in there with BBWs. It's that serious. So there you go. I just explained to you BBWs and AVNs. And BBWs in porn to be exact. So, with that being said, life is a learning experience. What's the point of the experience? You haven't learned anything. Smoke is over.